Hello and welcome to another episode of the Danielle K Show. I am here in Miami and I have an amazing guest. Katie Fleece is here. Remind me where you're from again. I was just about to say Indiana. I wanted to say Arizona, but that's where your headquarters is. Yes.
I wish.
yeah. I mean, I know Arizona's beautiful till it hits the summertime, and then
I know. True.
Another beast.
Yeah.
So I'm actually very excited to have you on the show. I kind of looked at your story, went and stalked your website, all your offers and all that thing. And I am very passionate about fitness, but I also believe that it comes within the mind.
Yes.
And deciding that for yourselves, because we all abide by these stories that dictate the results that we can get in our bodies. And so just listening to your messaging, I'm like, I need to have you on the show because so many people ask me about fitness.
Yeah.
And it's a sticky topic. Like, and I'm not like trained professionally. I just, I've done like fitness my whole life, but I'm like, I don't want to give you advice that isn't going to serve you.
Right.
So I'm actually excited to have you on the show because so many people message me, students ask me, I run like an academy with thousands of hairstylists and things like that. They're like, want me to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
But I'm like, let's have an expert on the show and like that I can pick your brain.
Yeah.
And hopefully women that are listening to this podcast, my goal is for them to have permission to create whatever they want in this life. And part of it is having an amazing body. And that's not a bad thing to want. Hey you guys, it's Danielle K. White. Welcome to the Danielle K. White Show. On this podcast, what you can expect is anything from fashion, fitness, hair, and yes, even family. I'm the creator of Natural Beta Real Hair Extensions and Isla Hand-Tied Hair. But what I'm really passionate about is sharing other people's stories, how they went from the pit to the peak, how entrepreneurs build the success that you see online today. So definitely tune into this podcast for a good story and a little bit of fashion and a little bit of hair and beauty mixed in. So tell me, like, have you always been into fitness or how did your journey get started?
So really, the short answer is yes. The long answer is it's not what I really thought I was going to do for the rest of my life. But I'm so glad, God had other plans. So I actually originally started out in fitness because I was actually just telling the story the other day. I graduated from a very, very small private school, 28 kids in my graduating class. So it was a very small school. They didn't have a lot of sports to offer. And it was like basketball and volleyball. And it's like, well, I'm 5'1" on a good day. So neither of those were really my thing.
Right.
And so I was like, in junior high, I took up I taught myself how to teach aerobics.
Oh, really?
And it was like step aerobics, Taebo. I'd watch the VHS and I'd study them. And and so eventually, at what
age was that?
That was like 13, 14 years old.
Okay.
And because I wanted to be an athlete, it was just like I didn't really have anywhere to be an athlete, So that's what I did as my sport. And my mom owned a business at the time. She owned a daycare.
Okay.
And they had a gym in this facility. And I was like, Mom, let me teach aerobics classes to these, parents and staff. And I did. So that's how I started out, was just teaching,
At what age? Like 16? You're like,
no, it was 14. 14 years old. I couldn't even drive.
And
funny. I, made up a little schedule for these women. And that's how it all started.
Oh, wow.
Loved it. Loved every minute of it. I really thought I was going to be a pop star. That didn't work out. Thank the Lord. And so, here we are.
There you are.
Yeah.
So you're doing the group fitness classes. I can relate to that. I like the step aerobics. Remember the Taebo.
Yes, Billy Blanks.
Yep, all the things. I love that stuff. I'm like athletic, but I was like, what do I do? And I started group fitness is how I started too.
Yeah.
So you start down this path. You love working out. Then how did it transform? Later in life, you're still very active. And then when did it kind of officially think into this is going to be my path in my career?
Well, I would say it was because I didn't ever really make it in the music industry.
Did you go down that path?
Yes and no. I mean, when I was a teenager, I auditioned for Nickelodeon and I went to competitions in Nashville.
Oh, wow.
And I really thought I am gonna be the next whatever. I don't even know if American Idol was out then, but that's what I wanted to be. And then, I graduated high school and I was like, I don't know. Do I really want to do that? So I went to college. That's where I met my husband and, studied exercise science. That's where I started out. And then the rest is history. I mean, at that point I would go door to door and put I made up these little flyers and I'd put them in people's mailboxes hey, you need a personal trainer.
Oh, wow.
And then it just turned into something bigger. And then, years down the road, I opened up personal training studios. That's kind of when I really went out officially on my own. I've got a personal training studio, you know? And then eventually a gym and sold that business a couple years ago. And now we're solely online.
So you started it, you started in fitness then. That was
yes,
kind of
I did.
your passion and the Nickelodeon thing. You're like, no.
It didn't work out.
You're like, I'll get over that.
Yeah.
So then you start in this fitness journey and then you have 2 kids.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So talk to me about, I have 4 daughters, crazy, but I think for me, I had a lot of transformation once you see your body get pregnant, then you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Tell me, so you got married. When did you have your kids?
So I was young. I was 22 when I had my son and 26 when I had my daughter.
Okay.
Both were C-sections. So that was different.
Yeah.
That's a whole other ball game when you get cut open and, and yanked from all angles.
Right.
And so it was definitely a journey. I really actually struggled with postpartum depression after my son was born. Oh, wow. I went through that whole journey and that was fun. My husband thankfully was like, you need help in the most loving way possible. You're kind of,
you don't feel like yourself kind of thing. And you can't figure out what's wrong.
It was awful. Yeah. And so, I went through that whole thing, but really I'm glad that I had fitness as a part of my life then, because really I think I would have been a lot more depressed had I not had an outlet of some sorts, you know? So
it's crazy because I never actually, I didn't consider myself athletic at all in high school and things. And it wasn't until I had my first baby that I remember my older sister at the time, I was like, what is going on? She's like, oh no, you have to work out now. And I was like, what?
Yeah,
no,
what?
I don't want to do that. And so I didn't really find same thing. I didn't find that there was it was so fun to work out till after I had kids and I'm like, oh, this actually does a lot for my mental state. Yeah. And like you said, I had 2 of my kids, I didn't have postpartum, but my last 2, I totally can relate. I just was I don't feel like me.
No.
And honestly, just getting up and going to the gym gave me just enough endorphins to get through it, you know?
Same.
And so I think a lot of women don't talk about that and they just kind of accept that that's where they're at. And that's why fitness is really important in my life. It also helps with anxiety.
Yes.
And so many things. It's
so many things.
It's crazy though. I want to ask you though, because I feel fitness, and I've struggled with this with myself, and a lot of women have the same thing. Fitness can be kind of addicting.
Yeah, I could see that.
On a slippery slope area.
Yes, totally. So I used to own a group fitness gym. That's what our gym was, and I saw it a lot there. People, women in particular, would come to 3, 4, 5 classes a day.
Yeah.
And they would look at me cross-eyed when I'd say, girl, you got to back it off. That's not good for your body.
Right.
Or when I'd say, hey, it's a good thing to take a rest day.
Yeah.
What? Rest, huh?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. So here's the thing. Yes, it is addicting, or it can be addicting. There are worse things to be addicted to. Right. So as long as you're addicted to it in a healthy way, then because I would say I'm probably addicted to it. It's I can't go a day without moving my body. Today I didn't lift weights, but I'm still moving. It just, you get to a point where you crave, your body just craves movement.
Yeah. Exactly.
So as long as you know how to do it in a way that's actually benefiting your body and not harming it, then
I think it's important for women, especially just to get educated.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times you'll see these women doing the 3, 4, or 5 classes because they don't know.
They don't know any better. They think more is better.
And they're like, I want to drop 10 pounds, 15 pounds, 40 pounds, whatever. Yes. And so they just think, I just keep doing this. And then their body doesn't budge.
Yep.
Why does that happen?
So there's a lot of reasons, and obviously it depends on the individual. But yes, we are trained, especially women, I think more so than men, where it's you know what? All I have to do to drop the pounds is cut my calories and work out more. There's some truth to that,
right?
Depending on where you're starting from. If you're starting from a place of severely overeating and not moving your body, yes, that's perfect. That's what you need to do.
Right.
But even then, it's most women still don't know what to do. They just know that, whereas what happens is a lot of these women are in restriction mode for years. I'm talking decades. We see it all the time. And they're like, oh my gosh, I eat 800 calories a day. I work out every day. I never take a rest day. I run 3 miles a day, and I'm not losing weight.
And those are typically the ones that don't have the best shape either.
Yes. Yeah. And they're like, what is wrong with me? And I'm like, well, first of all, everything about that.
The whole scenario is
actually everything. So let's just start
But they don't know.
They don't know. They don't know any better because that's what we were taught. I mean, I remember growing up with my mom. That's what everybody assumed.
Fat diets, extra cardio.
Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers, you get it. Like all of it.
Yeah.
So.
But it's interesting though that women they almost accept that though.
Yeah.
They're like, well, if I stop the cardio, I'm going to gain weight. Well, if I eat more, I'm going to gain weight. So they're like, I have to stay to this 800 calories a day and run a marathon or whatever it is, because they think if they stop that, they're like, well, at least I'm not gaining and I'm maintaining, but they're unhappy in the place that they're maintaining and don't give themselves permission to consider that can be corrected. Yes. So what would you say to the woman who's like, she's hearing you right now and she's like, oh my gosh, you're right. I do 2 classes a day and I think I had 1,000 calories yesterday. Yeah. Like, how do you get them to mentally break through like, hey, you're safe? Because when I had my first baby, I kind of had something similar. And I was like, then somebody taught me how you refeed and eat healthy. And
it's a mind game for sure. And you're exactly right. These women really have a real fear of like, well, if I stop working out twice a day and I increase my food and I actually eat the carbs, then I'm going to gain 50 pounds.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, let's reevaluate because you're doing all these things, yet you're not getting the result you want. So what's really true here, you know? And so again, it does depend on the individual and where they're starting from. But yeah, I mean, we're not going to take a person who's used to eating 500 calories a day, which we see a lot of those women, and put them on a 2,500 calorie diet.
Will gain weight.
We're not going to do that. You do got to slowly increase, and it takes some time. Like it's not going to happen overnight for these women to be like, okay, you're right. But when they start to make small little adjustments and really start training and eating efficiently and effectively, not just like going to the whatever group fitness class and doing random HIIT classes or, just saying
intentionally.
Right. Which they've got all of the right, what's the word? They're on the right track of like, okay, I got to work out and eat right. It's just, they're consistently doing the wrong types of training and the wrong types of eating, which is why they remain stuck.
Right.
It's
crazy. I mean, like I said, I've always loved working out for like my mental state.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until my 3rd daughter, I gained almost 70 pounds and had preeclampsia. And I was like, oh, this is rough. And that's when I started weightlifting and started like just studying nutrition and different things. And I was like, oh, it doesn't have to be that hard.
Weightlifting will change your life.
Yes.
Like it will change your life.
Right.
And so a lot of times too, what I'll see are, women, they think they need to weigh this magic number.
But they're after a shape.
They're after a shape. They're not after a weight.
They're right.
So then they will get to that weight and they're like, well, I'm just a smaller version of what I was.
Yeah.
Like the scale says I'm this, but I'm actually flabbier. I have more body fat. So then it's like, okay, so a lot of times what we'll do with women that come to us, we'll say, tell me what you want to look like. We have them tell us that before they ever tell us a number that they want to weigh.
Yeah.
Because they could be 2 totally different things.
Right. Exactly.
Well,
I've kind of learned that too. There's been times where I'm like, oh, I've lost weight, but I don't like how this looks, So then I'm like, I need to get back into the gym.
Yeah.
So I've kind of learned like, the scale matters at some point.
Sure. It's data.
Yeah. You're like, oh, I need to lose 50 pounds. We see the scale going down. But then if you look in the mirror and you're after a shape, it's like, okay. And a lot of women get to that place where they accept like, oh, this is, again, where I have to be. And it's all about like hiring coaches and educating yourself. You know what I mean? And it's just kind of getting out of that, like it is possible for you. So you've coached like thousands of women.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And I would say probably the biggest thing is probably conquering that little chip that's like, I can't do this.
It's the biggest thing.
Yeah. How do you start with somebody who's just so frustrated? Because like I said, it's like you could tell them, hey, we need you to stop eating 600 calories and eat 1,200 calories. And like, I'm surprised how many people don't hire a coach and don't follow the coaching.
Yes. So that's why we have a very strict application process because we are picky about who we want.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, if they don't desire that outcome, like truly desire to get to where they want to go. They're never going to get there.
Right.
You know what I mean? They have to decide. Like decide means to cut off. So they literally have to be willing to cut off all other options. You know, if they're just interested or curious or want to lose a quick 20 pounds before their vacation in 6 weeks, it's not the client for us.
Right.
Because they have to, we work with women that want to like radically transform, but like have that burning desire to get there.
Right.
Not just, oh, it'd be nice if it happened type thing. I mean, you really do have to have that little switch. And until you just, because at some point you have to be able to give up your old identity. Yeah. Right? Like you have to stop living as that old version of you. I mean, we see it all the time. These women that come in that need to lose, 50, 75, 100 pounds, like they literally have to create a new identity for themselves. Like, the old me no longer serves me. The choices she makes, the decisions she makes on a daily basis, they have to be different. The habits she makes on a daily basis, those things have to change if you're ever going to get to where you want to go. Fitness or not, like it's anything in life. Right. That pertains to anything. Right. But specifically your body.
I think it's like making that commitment, and like recognizing that in somebody like, okay, they're actually committed and they're going to do the work. Yeah. So you've always been into fitness. Like, have you always like known a lot about it? Like, have you ever like struggled with it? Like after kids and things like that? Like, how did you kind of figure out what to do and how you wanted your own personal shape to look like?
Yeah. So lots of practice. Anytime somebody comes up and they're like, what are you training for or whatever? I'm like, life. Life. It's just, I've been doing it for 20 years, 20 plus years. You know what I mean? So lots of practice, but I'm also a huge believer in coaching. Like I have my own coach and I will always have my own coach because I'm a firm believer that if you're going to promote the importance of having a coach, you need to be willing to put yourself in that situation. So what I do now is I'm kind of just the face of the brand. I'm the marketing, which I love. Yeah. That's like my favorite thing in the whole wide world. And all of our coaches are just freaking geniuses. They are phenomenal. And I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot in my career. I've seen a lot of coaches or, so-called coaches. And I can honestly say these guys and gals know what they're doing.
So when you like after kids and everything, you had your own like trainer and accountability person to kind of help you through your journey.
Always.
Yeah. I never did till literally my third baby. Yeah. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I've been doing it backwards. Yeah. I think a lot of times people have a hard time investing in themselves and investing in a coach.
Especially women.
Yeah. 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 There's the mom guilt.
Yeah. It is so real. Yeah. And I used to feel that way. I mean, postpartum depression. Like it was a real thing. Like I used to feel that way up until, I would even say maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah. And then what I learned was like, you know what? Like there is literally zero to be guilty about. You giving your kids a happier, healthier mom that can, play with them, have energy for them, is working on living a longer life, more quality of life. Like, how is that selfish? Yeah. Why do you feel guilty about that?
I think there's a guilt, but there's also in the back of the mind of like, that's my excuse is I can hold on to that guilt. Yeah. Because every woman we can all say that. I've done it in business where I'm like, oh, I feel the mom guilt. I'm like, that's your excuse. Yeah. And actually, you'll be a better mom if X, Y, and Z happens.
100%.
And so it's hard to like, even in myself, to kind of flip that mind swing. Like I'm using guilt. I'm holding on to guilt as an excuse.
Right. Because it's easy to say.
It's easy to say.
Oh, I'm guilty. I don't, I
don't need this.
I get it.
I don't need this. But the reality is you saying, I don't need this is like, I don't want to commit and put in the effort.
Yes.
So it's easier to live in this land of the mom guilt because now you're not committed.
Well, and your kids are watching you. They're literally watching your every move. Yeah. I don't care how young or old they are. Yeah. So if you're saying one thing, if you're telling them one thing, believe in yourself, go after your goals, work hard, and you're not doing those things yourself, they're going to think you're full of shit.
Yeah.
They are. They're going to think you're a phony. Yeah. And so when they see you actually doing those things and putting action behind your words and what you're actually telling them to do, like they're going to have more respect for you.
Well, and I think it's interesting that you say that because I do. It's like lead by your actions and your results.
Yeah.
You know, you can't say one thing, but you're not practicing what you preach.
Yep.
I remember one time I like brought my daughter, I own a salon and education, all that. I brought my daughter to work with me and I'm like feeling all guilty. And she looks at me and she's like, Mom, you're a great mom and you're doing a good job. I literally like just started melting down because I was like, I think the little things that we do as women, we don't understand that the impact that that's going to make on our children. And so I think like you said, like, if you feel good, you're going to be different with your children. And as much, I was watching your video and how you're like, people that say they don't care about their body are like lying basically.
Yeah.
Because it's like you, this is our human shell. And
it's our house.
It was like,
it's our home.
Take care of it, feel good, look good. And it impacts every area of your life. Yeah.
Everything.
So with your kids, I'm sure they see everything you do. Are they like overachievers and like,
you know what is so funny? They're very different. So I have a boy and a girl and they're both teenagers and they are just like complete opposites, which has been really fun parenting.
Yeah.
I got through one and now it's like,
you're like, totally different.
Totally different. But they are, it's so sweet because my 16-year-old son, he sent me a text message last week and he just said, I'm proud to be your son.
Aww.
And I'm like, oh my God, like, okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's just little things like that. Like you said, it's like, they notice. They notice the work that you're putting in. They see how hard you're working. They see how much you care.
Right.
They see how much discipline you have. And my daughter, she's the younger one, and she's so funny. She reminds me a lot of me as a child. She's still like a kid through and through, like at heart. Like my son has always been a very old soul. My daughter is like just free spirit. Like,
she want to be on Nickelodeon?
I know. Well, she did say that at one point she wanted to be a YouTube sensation. So there you go.
That's the new Nickelodeon.
Yes, that's the new Nickelodeon. Yeah. But, you know, all the time, even now, she'll say things like, oh my gosh, I look so strong. And I'm like, yeah, you do, girl.
Get it, girl.
You know what I mean? Because when I was a teenager, it was like, you know, these models that I had to look up to were 5'11" and 90 pounds. That's who we looked up to.
Yeah.
And so the fact that she's, you know, a 13-year-old going, man, I look so strong. It's just, that makes me like really happy.
Like good.
You know,
I'm glad you feel that way.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
It's interesting. The whole like mom dynamic and working and that kind of thing. Have you always worked since your kids have been little?
Yes.
Have you? Okay.
I have never been a stay-at-home mom type.
Yeah.
Like, I think that is wonderful. And I think those ladies are the real MVPs. It's not me. I could never do it.
Yeah.
Could never do it.
Yeah. It's funny. My husband the other day, like when we were moving here, I had a few weeks where I didn't have as much help. And I was like, I don't think I'm cut out to be a stay-at-home mom.
No.
I don't think I could do it.
No. I tried for like 8 weeks when my daughter was probably about 6 months old. And I was like, yeah, not for me.
Yeah. You have your passion and your purpose. And it's like, like we love our kids, but it's okay to have passion and purpose beyond kids. So did people ever ask specifically, like, what do you do for your diet and exercise? Like, do they want like a complete, like, tell us everything you eat? Because here's what drives me nuts is like, I hate when it's like, what I eat in a day. And like, I'm like, is that real? Is that real? So then people ask me all the time, they're like, I'm like, well, is it Friday? What are my goals? Like, what am I doing? I'm like, I'm not training for anything. So like, I might go out and have some pasta. Like, I don't know.
Here's the thing. I actually hate that question.
Because
it's like, I don't like to share that kind of stuff. And I do sometimes. Yeah. But I'm also at a very different place than a lot of these women asking.
Like, you're like, what are your goals?
Right. Yeah. These women that are asking have never done any of this before, where I've been doing it for a very long time. Right. And I've also trained my body to handle a lot of food. Right. And a lot of my favorite foods. You know what I mean? Right. And like, for instance, I drink Starbucks every single day and everybody's like, ooh, what do you get? You know, I'm like, listen, it's probably not macro friendly. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I just have it because I genuinely enjoy it.
Right.
And I'm at a place in my body where I'm able to do that.
Exactly.
You know?
Well, I think it's important that you're touching on this because like people want an exact meal plan, but you're like, but what are your targets? What are your goals? Where are you at in your fitness journey? And I've even like, there was a few times where people, I'm like, here's my exact meal plan, like literally like screenshot it. I was like, go ahead. And people still, you can give them the exact thing, but they still won't do it.
No, they're different body types, different people, different goals, different metabolisms. So you can put 2 people on the exact same meal plan and they will have completely different results. Yep. You know? Yeah. And that's I think that's where a lot of women struggle is because they've been, they've bought into these generic meal plans or the generic advice, like just eat more protein. Cut your carbs. Cut your carbs, do HIIT training 3 days a week and increase your protein.
Yeah.
And drink your half your body weight in water and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Well, okay, but what does that mean for that particular individual?
Right.
And so then they just find themselves spinning their wheels. And then they're just frustrated because they're like, I'm doing all the things. Like, I'm doing what this fitness influencer told me to do. And I'm literally not seeing any results. And I'm like, well, okay, but that's what they've been telling everybody to do.
They're telling everybody shape and size.
Right. There's a difference.
Yeah. I think I think it's important for women listening to the show to understand that. And that's why I always say seek out professionals.
Yeah.
Because it is kind of a customized approach. It's like you could have somebody like, I always tell people, for me, like what I'm eating right now is different right after I had my baby and I got to drop 50 pounds.
Yes.
Right?
Very.
And one of the things and I was watching something, sorry, I like go down the rabbit hole
and
everything.
It's all good.
One of the things that like I saw in your guys' program is like cutting the fat and then rebuilding the muscle.
Yeah.
Which that's kind of like the technique that I've gone about when I've had my kids. I'm like, hey, focus number one, lose the weight, then build back up the muscle.
Yeah.
How do you work with women like on just individually based, or how does that work?
It's all customized.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Yeah.
It has to be.
But like, where are they at?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you sometimes will have women that come in and they've got 50 pounds to lose.
Yeah.
Other people are like, you know what? It's more of a body fat thing. I'm already at a healthy weight. I don't care what I weigh.
Yeah.
I just want 6-pack abs.
Yeah.
Well, that is going to be a very different approach than somebody that needs to lose 50 pounds.
Exactly. Like workouts are different. Diets are different.
Yeah.
Everything.
And fat loss and weight loss are two different things. And actually, when women say they want to lose weight, again, assuming that they're not like crazy obese.
Right.
Most of the time what they mean is I want to lose fat.
Yes. Body composition.
Body composition. And that's why it's important to figure out like what they actually want to look like.
Yeah.
Not what they want to weigh.
Yeah.
That will play a factor.
Right.
But a lot of times, again, what they think they should weigh and what they're going to weigh looking like they want to look, it's a little off.
Yeah.
Right. So, which is actually always fun because you really start to see kind of a light bulb go off with these women. Like, oh my gosh, like I've got a booty and 6-pack abs.
Yeah.
I literally don't care that I weigh 120
says.
anymore.
Yeah.
Like I actually am rocking a bikini at the beach. I'm good.
Yeah.
you know? So
it's interesting. I made a post the other day and it was like, I look leaner when I'm heavier because I have more muscle.
Yes.
And so I was trying to like explain this to people. I'm like, listen, I have like my stage weight from shows, but I also have like my not stage weight where I'm like, I'm not going to eat that strict.
Yeah.
And body composition is going to change a little bit. And that's okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for women to understand if they're frustrated with what they're doing, I would recommend a customized approach, just like you're talking about.
Change it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like stop doing the same things and expecting a different result.
Yes.
Like for the love of all things holy.
Yes.
Come on.
Do you ever coach women where they're just like, oh, it's my genetics?
Oh, literally every day.
Because you can't change. We're 5'2", but
it's my favorite thing when they say that because I'm just like, every woman says that. And if people saw my genetics, like I actually have blood cancer. Like I will have it the rest of my life. And I'm like, you want to talk about genetics? All right, let's talk about genetics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes, they play a very small little role. Things like bone structure. Okay. But the fact that you have type 2 diabetes is not genetic.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Or the fact that you're 100 pounds overweight, that's not
genetic.
Again, it's kind of goes back to what you were saying is it's an easy excuse to say, it's just genetic. Like I'm just never gonna look like I want to look, or I'm never gonna lose this weight because it's genetic. It's easy to say that.
Yeah.
It's simply not true.
Yeah. Well, and I also think too, I think it's like becoming the best version of you.
Yeah.
Right. And like over the years with my body transformation, I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't even know I could look like this. Yeah. And so I know I'm not going to ever be 5'9". It's just, it's just not going to happen.
Right. Yep.
But I also love that you're kind of talking about like, don't fall into that excuse of like, oh, I'm a mom or it's just genetics, and understand that that's lack of commitment and actually putting in the work.
Yes.
And anybody who's listening to this, if this is resonating with you, hire a coach.
That's right.
So I want to talk to you more about the blood blood cancer. Can we talk about that? Because I was
sure.
kind of reading a little bit more about you. How did that all come about?
So back in 2020, that was a fun year. At the time, I still owned a gym. So we got shut down. Like it was just, for everybody, it was a shit show. Okay. I think we can all agree. And that year, August of that year, I was feeling weird, and I felt weird for a while, actually years.
Oh, wow.
But I just kind of threw it up to, I'm a business owner.
Yeah.
I work all the time. I'm busy, but I was like chronically fatigued, like exhausted. But again, it's kind of like, it's normal. Yeah. It's fine.
You're fine. Yeah.
Then I started getting really bad night sweats, like really bad.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of like weird things. And I was like, okay, something's not right. I actually thought, I think it's like perimenopause or something.
How old were you at the time?
I was, 34.
Oh, yeah. You shouldn't be.
Right?
Yeah.
So something wasn't right. So I actually just went and got my hormones checked. And I was like, okay, something's not right. I'm here, They literally called me on the phone. I will never forget this. I was on my way to drop my daughter off at her cheer practice. And they say to me over the phone, you need to see a hematologist. We cannot help you. And I go, what? What do you mean? And they go, you're showing all the signs of blood cancer.
Oh, wow.
It still gives me chills to this day because the fact that they told me that over the phone was like, so my daughter is like, she could tell something was clearly wrong because I just hung up the phone in silence. And I'm like, okay, if I talk right now, I'm going to lose it. And she's going, Mom, are you okay? What's wrong? Because at the time she was a little thing. She was, 8 years old or something. I'm like, yeah, honey, I'm fine. And sure enough, so I went and saw an oncologist and did all of the testing. And sure enough, that's what I got. I have blood cancer.
Wow.
It is not curable. It's treatable, meaning the only way to treat it is with chemo. I've chosen not to do that because, again, if it's a life or death situation, then we'll talk. But right now, it's not.
It's treatable.
It's just, you're going to have it.
Yeah.
You're going to deal with it. And so I get my blood drawn every 3 months or so. We monitor my levels. And right now I've been able to just kind of keep it at bay.
Yeah.
And
do you still feel some of the same symptoms?
Yes, I do.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
So
because my platelets are in the millions.
Okay.
And that's not normal.
Yeah.
And so, yes, things like night sweats and all those things, I still feel those symptoms because, and again, it's just like one of those things where I got to deal with it.
Yeah. I've never even heard of blood cancer. So when I was like reading about it, I'm like, oh, you can get actual cancer in your blood.
Yeah. Super fun.
So no, it's not fun at all. But it's just crazy. Like you're going through this and it's just like, it's part of who you are.
Yep.
And yet look at you. You're
honestly, most days I forget I even have it.
Yeah.
Because I made my mind up. I mean, I was angry for about 3 days. Like, I was actually more like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
Like, this is ridiculous. Okay. Yeah. I don't have time to be doing iron infusions and all this crap.
Yeah.
But I decided, like, first of all, I have this for a reason and it's just part of my testimony, but it's not who I am.
Yeah.
I am not the blood cancer.
Yeah.
It's just part of my story.
Yeah.
And, I've been able to share that story, especially and relate to women.
Right.
On a level of like, especially when they come to me and say like, I've got all these health issues and chronic illnesses and, and I'm like, cool, me too.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
Like you can still do things and have all of those things.
And I think that's a great message to have because so many people might hear that and kind of shrink down to that.
Yep.
And instead it's like, hey, well, now I understand why I'm having the headaches and the night sweat, but that's not going to be permission for you to not pursue your passion and your calling. And if anything, like you said, now you can talk to women and you're like, hey, guess what?
Yeah.
Guess what I'm working with as well.
Yeah.
And you can create whatever it is you want for yourself. And, and that's, I think that like, even though it's hard for you to go through and probably not fun, it, like you said, it is a part of your journey and a part of your story.
Yeah.
So you're currently still married, right?
Yes.
Okay.
18 years.
18. Congratulations.
Yep.
You got married young.
I did. I was 20.
Oh, same girl.
21. Yeah.
So, oh, really? Yeah, I was 20. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been with my husband for 21 years.
Love it. Yeah.
Yeah. So is he into fitness?
He is. He actually works for the same company as I do. He's in the sales department.
Oh, nice.
And so, yeah, it's, we've worked together for a while now. Ever since we opened the gym, we kind of worked together on that. And, when I was recruited over by Superhuman, I was like, well, we're a package deal.
Oh, okay.
So he's got to come with because he works with me, you know, and it's been a really, really good thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you kind of went down the whole entrepreneur path where you guys had gyms and everything.
Yes.
Did you transition to that after 2020?
So we sold our gym in 2022.
Okay.
Which was really exciting. That's something I'm really proud of, especially to make it through COVID, be profitable through COVID, and then be able to, you know, create a sellable business, like especially a gym, you know, because it's like they were shutting down left and right. It was terrifying. And so then at that point, that's when we went solely online. Now I've been in the online coaching space since 2010, before anybody even knew what online coaching was.
Was it all nutrition and fitness based?
Yeah, it was. But it was like, you know, I'd send them PDFs. Like, we've come a long way. We didn't have apps. We didn't have that kind of technology. But in 2022, we went solely online. And then really at that point, I was just kind of like, man, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up type thing. I was like, I know I'm meant for something bigger, for something more, but I didn't know what that looked like, you know?
Did you sell just to go online because you saw more opportunity there?
Yes. Okay. So the beautiful thing about COVID is when that hit, our online business took
skyrocketed.
Off.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people's did. Yeah. And so that's where we really saw the opportunity, you know, the opportunity, like our reach, we can serve
way more
people.
Right.
And so that's really why we did it, and we sold and we went online, and it was great. And then, but like I said, there was at that point, it was still like, all right, kind of like, now what? What's the next thing, God? You know, like I know I'm meant for so much more. I just don't know what it is. And then an opportunity came along that I couldn't pass up, and
and that's when you and your husband went and partnered up with them.
With Superhuman.
And you're like the female face. They didn't have females before?
They did not. They had maybe like 10. Okay. And it was like wives of the men. So it was an all male company.
Oh, wow.
And it was so funny because like I mentioned to you earlier before we started filming, I've known John for a while, like since 2017, 2018, something like that, just from the gym space. And he markets to males, like, and he's like, I don't know how to speak to women. Like, I don't know how to market to women, you know? And so he's
very
like,
different.
Yes. And, so little did I know he was kind of stalking me for the better half of like a year.
Yeah.
And he's like,
I was his female coach.
Trying to find a woman that had a lot of the same values and passion and could speak the way he spoke to men. Yeah. But do it a little bit more,
a little softer.
You know, maybe a little softer.
A little delicate.
And so that's when he reached out to me. And actually my husband went through their program a couple years ago as a client.
Oh, cool.
And so then he kind of got hooked up with them then. And so he had just kind of been stalking me and was like, hey, we want to branch out into the female market. We need a bold female. And we thought of you. So that's when we're like, all right, well, let's chat and let's see what you're thinking. And it's been pretty awesome. So
it's interesting though too, like when I was watching you speak, you kind of touched on every like woman, like, oh yeah, I've been there. Yeah. By the end of the video, you're like, I don't really have any excuses. Should I sign up for this? And you're like, I think I trigger people, but I think in like a good way.
Oh yeah.
Like in a good way. Like totally. You might be like, how dare she tell me I can have an amazing body and that my body's the accessory to my handbag, you know?
Yes, right. Oh, but, yes.
You know, like, because there's this like, oh, is that possible? And it's like, yeah, it really is. And like,
but so many women, especially the type of woman we work with, we work with the woman who typically, and not even just the woman, like men and women, they're like the business owner, the CEO, the executive, the people that have like, on the outside, they've got their shit together. Right. But yet their body, they feel like total crap. And because it's like they've chosen, you can only have one or the other. And we're like, no, like you can have both, because what good is all the, the fancy houses and the cars and the, the corner office.
If you feel like crap.
Because if you don't have your health, you don't have anything.
Exactly.
And none of that means anything if you're a walking heart attack.
Yeah. My husband is in like the men's coaching space.
Yeah.
And he's like, I deal with a ton of successful men that their excuse is I just make money. Therefore I don't have to have a fit body.
Right.
And it's funny because after I got into like lifting weights and competing, he saw just like my whole demeanor change. And I'm like, you should get on stage. And he's like, oh, I don't need that. I'm like, oh, wait, you're talking about these successful guys saying they have to choose, just like you're saying. I'm like, why don't you get on stage?
Yeah.
So one night we were at dinner in actually Miami a couple years ago. I made him sign on a napkin that he was going to do a fitness show after a couple margaritas. Didn't think he would do it.
And he did.
And it's so cool to see so he's put on like 30 pounds of muscle.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you show up like the guy I always saw.
Yes.
And it's crazy to see that manifest in the physical body. It's like it emerges people like a butterfly. You know what I mean?
Don't you think that, I say this all the time, and sometimes if people don't really know what it means, like they look at me really funny, but it's like, I firmly believe that if you have the physique, like you feel good in your body, you'll look good.
Yeah.
You will make more money.
I agree. Yeah.
Like seriously, because you're going to show up more confident. Yeah. You're going to present the deal or present the offer with like the boss that you actually are, right. You know, instead of trying to hide or be, you know, being a little mousy little thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like you just show up differently.
Well, it's interesting too, because my husband's always been a confident person. Yeah. But now he walks into a room and I'm like, you command the whole room. Yes. And he feels it and he's like, oh, and so we say the same thing. He's like, I think I made more money this last year. I'm like, I'm sure you did. You carry yourself differently. Yes. Yep. So like you were certain before, but now it's like you command kind of this like presence. It's like now your outside matches how you already were. Yeah. You know, so I'm like I'm a firm believer in that. And I love that you're touching base on that, because so many people think they don't need it or they have to pick. And the reality is I always say, like, you're already doing the work. Why don't you just get effective results? Because how many people,
for real,
like they maybe don't like their body, but they're like, well, I'm working out every day and I'm eating pretty good. Yeah. And then you're like, but you still feel like shit and you don't look like you want to feel. Yeah. So why don't you flip the script, educate yourself, and it's not like pick this or that. Yep. Just go after better results.
And that's really the majority of the women and men that we work with. Actually, I would say maybe not men. Yeah. Because I think men are different. They're like, I make the money, I'm good type thing. But the women, at least the majority, come to us already have tried everything. You know, it's not like they're lazy and they sit on the couch and they eat potato chips all day long. Like they're actively trying, right? But they're actively doing the wrong things. Yes. You know? Yes. And that's why they just feel like they're spinning their wheels all the time. So
it's crazy though. But that's why I always celebrate. I'm like, hire a coach. Like when anybody asks me fitness advice, I'm like, what I'm doing is not what I would do if I'm training for this, or you know, what is my goal? What is my targets? Like if I show you what I'm doing and you do it, you're not going to get the same results.
Exactly.
And I always tell people, I'm always hesitant to be like, do this exact workout, do this and this. And I'm always like, go talk to somebody about it. Because I want people to listen to this show that you can accept where you're at, or you can change it. You can change that script. Like, are you genuinely saying you did everything in your possibility to give you the outcome that you wanted? Yep. And if the answer is, well, no. And a lot of times too with trainers, you have people that pay for the trainer, but then they lie to the trainer. And you're like, how do you help them?
Yeah, right. I know. And the trainer can only do so much, right? They control the environment when you're, you know, for the 30, 60 minutes that you're there. They don't control what you do afterwards. Right. And that's actually what's going to make the biggest difference. One thing I like to say is, like, if you think about it, if you stop and think about like every single decision, every second of the day, every moment in time has led up to this moment right here, right now, right where we're sitting. Right. And it's got you here. That's great news, because that means everything you do moving forward can get you to where you want to go. Right. You know, and if people can grasp that and be like, oh yeah, it's literally all about choices and decisions. Yeah. That's literally all it is.
It's funny too, because like even people think like, oh, you're fit, you don't go out to eat and this and that. I'm like, no, I do, but I still make conscious efforts. Yes. You know? And it's mainly like, I'm going to feel really, really shitty if I eat this giant tomahawk steak. I would never do that, you know? I'm like, so I'm going to try to make healthier decisions. Yeah. So I think it's like, what are your goals? Getting to where your goals are. And then you can kind of play around a little bit and relax.
And then you learn to maintain. Yes. You have to accept it as a lifestyle and stop accepting it as well, I'm going to do this for 6 weeks. Or I'm going to do this for 75 days, you know, or whatever it may be. Like, you have to really adapt. Like, well, this is just who I am now. This is what I do. Right. And this is what my life looks like. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just part of who I am.
Yeah. So. And I love that. I think it's so important for people to understand, like, there might be, like, for me, there's like seasons where it's a little more challenging. I'm like, okay, I have to lose the baby weight. Like, I might give up the pasta bowl on the weekend or whatever it is, you know? Yeah. And then once I get to my goal, I'm like, okay, now I can kind of play around with my workout, my food and things like that. Yep. So it's like, it's important for people to understand, like, if your goal is radical, like if you need to drop like 150 pounds, you're going to go through some periods where it might be a little bit harder.
It's not going to be sustainable.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Right.
Because weight loss is not meant to be sustainable. You're not going to be losing weight forever.
All the time. Exactly.
Like you're not going to be 0 pounds. Yeah. So like it's not meant to be sustainable, but that's where a lot of people mess up is they restrict for decades.
So long. Yeah.
And then they're frustrated with they can't lose the weight or they can't get rid of the belly bulge or whatever. You know what I mean? So that's why it's important to do it in phases.
Yeah.
So when
touch base on that a little bit for women, because I think they have a hard time like accepting that.
Yes. So like I was saying earlier, it's like we see so many women just like they've got that mindset, less is more. Yeah. And it's not the case. Right. You know, it is in small increments of time. But if you don't properly retrain that metabolism, then what's going to happen is, and most people, I would say most women could probably find themselves in this category, is they lose the weight. What happens 8 weeks later?
Just yo-yo.
It's all back, usually plus some. And it's because, you know, they just didn't do it properly. So it's important to do it in phases.
Yeah.
You know, like cut the fat, cut the weight, whatever, then slowly build back up so you can maintain what you just had.
Right.
You know, but they'll go on, let's say keto, cut carbs out for 18 months. Yeah. And then they start to eat carbs again. And guess what?
They're going to gain it back.
They balloon up.
Yeah,
and they're like, I don't know what's wrong with me. And I'm like, I did.
Yeah.
Like, I know.
You're like, well, let me tell. But it's interesting though, too, because I've talked with friends and they'll be like, oh, what's your diet like and this and that? And then they'll tell me what theirs. I'm like, well, you ate really good for Monday through Thursday, but then you went off the deep end for
the weekend. Weekends still count.
Yes. And I'm like, if your goal is to lose, like maybe don't go off the deep end because now that's like 40% of your week. You were good for 4 days and then went off the bender for 3 days.
Yes.
And so it's a cycle where, like you said, people do cleanses and keto and all these things. And then it's gotta be something where you do it. Like, I just love that you touched on that so much, where it's like in phases. Yeah. Like you're like, hey, you had a really good like 6 weeks and now like you're going to have a weekend trip to Cabo. That's fine. Yeah. Be mindful, come back and get on track.
Yes.
You know?
Well, and when they do these drastic cuts, that's exactly what happens. They have a vacation come up or a weekend binger or whatever it may be. And they never get back on track. Yeah. Because they've been restricted for far too long. Yeah. You know, and that's a good sign that you're like, okay, wait, maybe what I'm doing is not the right way. If you feel like you're constantly like going on all these like crazy like weekend, you know, things. And that's a good sign that, okay, well, maybe I need to reevaluate what I'm actually doing. Right.
Sometimes too, though, like my last trainer in California, she would always tell me like, Danielle, don't come back from a vacation and think you need to do some crazy diet.
No.
Just she'd say that same thing. Just get back on track.
What you were doing.
Yeah.
Because then you use nutrition and exercise as punishment.
Yes.
And when you
it's
start,
a mental,
it's like you're associating diet and exercise as a bad thing.
Yes.
Because you just enjoyed yourself on vacation.
Right.
I saw it all the time, especially when I owned a gym. Yeah. It was like the day after Thanksgiving, people would think,
I gotta go run a marathon.
I'm going to do extra cardio today. Or I'm going to do 5 classes. You know, and I'm like, that's not how it works.
But then it leads, like you said, to this weird kind of mental addiction where you can't figure out, why am I not having results?
Right. Yep.
And it's like the opposite of what you would think. It's like, hey, you allow yourself to have fun. Yeah. Now just get back on track. And when you do that, it becomes, like you said, like it's kind of a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle.
And you can still have fun.
Yep. Exactly.
But it's just like, okay, we don't need to go on this crazy roller
for
coaster.
years at a time.
Yeah. It's interesting. The only reason I wanted to really dive into this topic because it is women struggle with this same thing. My first 2 kids, I struggled with it a little bit, and I was like always in my head about like the whole fitness and food and all this. And then finally, like I said, it was my last 2 that I was like, I just need to better educate myself. Yeah. I'm like, I refuse to live in this like prison of like stressing about it this hard. Right. And so when I kind of like went about it a different way and always worked with personal trainers, I was like, Oh, even to this day, it's funny, when we were moving, I had stopped working out with a trainer. I told myself I was going to lift weights, and I totally didn't for like 2 months.
Yeah.
And then I move here, and I'm like, people are like, don't you know what you're doing with like weightlifting? That I'm like, I do, but I love having a trainer for the accountability.
Yes.
So I just think it's important to, like, people don't want to invest in a trainer. I'm like, but think of it as you're investing in you and how you show up as a mom, as a wife, as a business owner.
And here's the thing. If you could do it on your own, I'm not saying you can't. Like, you absolutely can do it on their own. And I know a lot of people that have done it successfully. Me neither. But what happens is it may take you 10 to 15 years to figure it out.
A little bit longer.
And do you know how much time and money you waste when you do that?
Right.
Not you, but women, like they waste a lot of time and a lot of money.
Right.
And it's like, I know for me, I don't have a lot of time to waste. Like, I want to make sure that the work I'm doing is actually work that is going to get me closer to my goal.
Or your goal.
And so when people will, complain about the investment, or like, oh, it's too much money, or I'm like, that's fine. It is a significant investment. I'm not saying it's not.
Right.
But do you know how much money you're going to actually, it's going to save you down the road?
Yeah. I was going to say the cost of not doing it is higher. Yeah,
exactly.
I experienced that within like the hair education. People will go, because mine's kind of higher ticket too.
Yeah.
People will go bounce around, do everything else. And then like 5 years later, they're like, they finally come take mine. They're like, I just wasted $5,000, $10,000 on all these other trainings. I'm like, you should have just come here in the first place, But it's true. It's crazy. I think as for women, it's like, if you're listening to the show and you're really resonating with what we're talking about, you guys, hire a coach and have somebody keep you accountable and educate yourself in the process. You know what I mean? But so where can people find you? Where can they, are you accepting new clients? Can they?
Yep. Okay. So you could, Instagram is where I hang out the most, I would say. So that's just Katie, my name, and it's 2 T's, Kattie _ Fleece. Funny story. I hate underscores, but Katie Fleece was taken. Huh. Is that weird?
That is weird.
I know.
Twin out there.
So, but here's the thing. It's actually a profile picture of me. So I'm like, did I create an account like when Instagram first came
started?
Out?
And you don't know?
I have no idea, but it's Katie _ Fleece. Yeah. I know.
Funny.
I'm like, this is weird. It's creeping me out. But Katie _ Fleece is where I hang out the most on Instagram. TikTok's the same. And then Facebook is actually Suprahuman for women.
Okay.
And it's suprahuman.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, superhuman for women.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. And then last question.
Yeah.
What would you tell the woman that's listening to this and she's like, I've got to make a change for myself.
Yeah.
And she's just struggling to make the commitment.
So pretty much what I said in the beginning, like, you have to make a decision.
Right.
Because you being indecisive is still a decision.
Yeah.
It's a decision to stay stuck.
Right.
So if you are like genuinely ready to like have a hot bod, to look the way that you want to look, to, like, you gotta like literally decide it and not do anything else. Like, no matter how long it takes.
Yeah.
If it doesn't happen in 2 months, oh well. Like, if it's genuinely a desire, it doesn't matter how long.
Yeah.
It may take 2 months, depending on where you're, starting from.
Right.
It may take 2 years.
Right.
But if you're like, no, like, that's who I am, then you got to start showing up as her.
Right.
Like, you're already there. Like, make the decisions that future you would make. Otherwise, you're going to stay in the exact same position that you're in.
Yeah. And don't feel bad for wanting a hot bod, ladies.
Heck no.
Your husband's going to love it. You're going to feel more sexy.
I've never met one husband that was like,
that's a bad idea.
This was a terrible idea that my wife got hotter.
Yeah. What man said that ever?
Like, no man ever.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being on the show. I knew I'd get along with you because I just similar values and things like that. I love fitness. I love the transformation in people. It's about the body, but it's really not, in a way.
It's transforming everything.
From inside to outside. Yeah, I love it. So you guys check out Katie Fleece on Instagram, TikTok. I kind of like secretly want to join your program. So like she sold me right before we got on the podcast. So I
know where you can sign up.
Okay, yeah, exactly. I was like, where do I sign up? And then I was like, wait, she's in my living room. I'll just go talk to her. So you guys check her out on Instagram. If you are struggling, hire a coach, reach out to Katie.
Yes.
Like, it is possible to create the body of your dream, and the impact that you have in the process. You're being selfish if you don't accept your dream body.
It's true.
So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks
you
for
guys
having me.
Tune into another episode of the Danielle K. White Show every single week, where we have incredible people on here sharing their stories, sharing their expertise and their knowledge. And don't forget one thing, share this with a friend that might resonate with what we're talking about.
Yes.
All right, you guys, we'll see you every single week.